Hello everyone, welcome to my Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Veteran difficulty, no EXO upgrades walkthrough. This is mission 9, Crash, and I gotta say, I do like this mission. I think the sequences are a lot of fun. I mean, this one is the hardest part of mission 9 by far, but it's all dependent upon when you're supposed to move forward. So you have to move kind of fast towards this cargo here, but not too fast. Because if you go too fast, the enemies that I was just shooting at will shoot you. If you go too slowly, enemies will spawn right near the cargo, and they will disrupt your opportunity to actually get over here. But I've timed it correctly after I killed that guy who was on top of that ice cliff formation. And now I'm just going to sit behind this cargo right here, and I'm going to stay on this side of the cargo. And you see this guy right here, a couple of these Atlas soldiers will actively be trying to go in that direction to set up in a position where they can hit you when you're behind this cover here. And the guys that are right behind me, they can't actually hit me because there's an invisible barrier underneath one of the wings of this VTOL that prevents them from hitting me. But of course, I can't hit them. And none of the other enemies will think to flank me from behind. So I'm just going to cover this side right here. But I need to make sure that I don't expose myself too much because the enemies are very quick to shoot you the moment you expose yourself. But you see this right here? This guy is not taking any damage because of the invisible barrier right underneath the wing of that VTOL. And I should be using my smart grenades right here, which I am doing right here. So I'm going to throw the smart grenade out, and I need to turn the camera in that direction to influence the direction. And eventually, the rest of the Sentinel soldiers will push forward. Cormac's going to get on the cargo, and he's going to tell you to push. And the moment you trigger the cutscene, every single enemy despawns. You get full-on iframes. This is really good design, because in previous Call of Duty games like COD 4, COD 4 had multiple sequences where you could take damage during these moments where you're just not in control of your character. And saving Macmillan is one of the worst missions in Call of Duty 4 on Veteran difficulty because the number of opportunities for the enemies to shoot you in the middle of animations is obnoxious. And they should give you full-on iframes. Like, you can take damage while you're trying to pick up Price. You can take damage while you're dropping him. And you can take damage when you're getting on the chopper, I believe. It's a terribly designed mission. Like, COD 4 is lauded by so many as being one of the hardest Call of Duty games ever, when in actuality, it's one of the most broken Call of Duty games ever, because Infinity Ward, they don't ever put functionality and difficulty at the forefront of design choices. They try to instead design an experience suitable for recruit difficulty, and then just put in Veteran difficulty just because. But at least Sledgehammer Games had some brains when designing the cutscene just then, when you're actually pushing the cargo in. But moving on, we have a couple of minor skirmishes, and the minor skirmishes aspect of this mission is probably one of the main reasons why I like it, because there's not so many opportunities for the AI to be bullshit, and there's some pretty good power positions. Like, the enemies are kind of used intelligently when it comes to how they're placed in the environment. And you do get the opportunity to use some pretty cool weapons. Like, I picked up the Ball 27 just then with the target enhancer. An enemy had that weapon. And the Ball 27 is probably the best machine gun in the game. And Seraphim 17 equally agrees. I watched a portion of his Advanced Warfare walkthrough. It was specifically in the mission called Utopia. And he said that the Ball 27 was one of the most powerful weapons in the game, and I really feel it here. It doesn't have a lot of kick on it when you're firing, and the recoil on it isn't so bad, and it feels like a damaging weapon, and it feels really satisfying to fire when you're just seeing the gun just recoiling, and also when you're hearing the sound effect. And this is the power of this weapon. This weapon has no rival in the game. I don't know any other weapon that can easily compare to the Ball 27's capabilities. But right now, we are dealing with more small skirmishes with the enemies. There are a couple enemies on the left, there are a couple enemies on the right. Deal with them. And by the way, you are using the Assault EXO for this mission. We've gone how many missions? And we're now getting the Assault EXO? Like, it's been so long since we've had the chance to use the Assault EXO, and I think the last time we used the Assault EXO was in the mission called Fission. And I think Fission was mission 4, but we've gone up to mission 9 at this point, and we're now getting back the Assault EXO. What is up with that? I don't know why the game can't properly decide when it wants to use these exos. But maybe I should be grateful though, because the Specialist EXO is definitely my favorite EXO compared to the Assault EXO. I just think the Assault EXO has some really bad abilities, and I know I said originally that the Sonics were a really good ability, but I tried using the Sonics on this mission to bypass a lot of these lengthy encounters, and the Sonics just presented with mixed results as to whether the enemies would be stunned or not, and it was just not practical in the slightest, so I stopped using the Sonics for this mission, and I'm instead just going to take it nice and slowly. And this target enhancer sight plus my threat grenades, they're really helpful in actually dealing with the enemies in this section. And this was very close. This is a great example of what happens when your AI partners push forward, but they completely forget one enemy that they ran past. And Alona is right under him. I think there's also a point where I do accidentally shoot Alona, but the game doesn't penalize me, which is really good. There's the spark grenade being stupid. It went right into the wall I was looking at rather than prioritizing the enemy. Just very hit and miss detection on the smart grenades. But I talked a little bit about the exos earlier, and this actually brings me on to another tangent that Seraphim17 brought up in his walkthrough, which I 100% agree with. The game, it introduces a lot of these abilities for the players to use, yet when you're actually trying to find some kind of creative way to use the abilities to do a lot of these challenging / lengthy encounters very quickly, there's just not a lot of opportunities for that to be the case. Like, they present all these mechanics, yet they feel very underutilized in the end. And Seraphim17 brought up a great example of this with the grapple mechanic. And the grapple mechanic, it's a mechanic that theoretically it should allow you to get a strategic angle on the enemies or create flank routes for the player to actually utilize in order to deal with the enemies from some very strategic positions. Yet you can only use the grapple in very specific circumstances, and the grapple for the most part just feels like a different aesthetic to the traversal rather than just the simple running everywhere or just climbing things by mantling. That's all it really feels like, and I've seen one application for the grapple in a very unique circumstance, and I saw it on some other person's video, but there's a mission later on in Advanced Warfare where you can use the grapple to actually get onto VTOLs that the enemies are using, and then from there you can get rid of the enemies that are inside the VTOL. And I think you can do other things inside the VTOL, but that's a really interesting idea, but it's only for one section of the game, which is so disappointing. I mean, I don't know why they would put in these kind of mechanics, yet not put a greater emphasis on them. Like, Call of Duty Cold War, it had a greater emphasis on using the human shield mechanic to deal with so many encounters. Like, the human shield mechanic was done so perfectly in Black Ops Cold War that I can't really think of a single circumstance where using the human shield was actually the wrong thing to do. And it really helped balance out a lot of broken encounters in Black Ops Cold War. And if the human shield mechanic existed in the previous Call of Duty games, it could have led to some very creative gameplay elements to these encounters and just made the gameplay a lot more interesting and less repetitive and less generic. And it would have also helped in dealing with so many of the bad designs present with some of the encounters in the earlier Call of Duty games. And it's 2021, and they're just now embracing this whole idea of the human shield mechanic in Black Ops Cold War. That to me just seems rather absurd, and it just makes no sense to me at all. And I'll elaborate further on this tangent when I get the chance in the later missions, but once we get over to the drop point and we pick up this cargo here, that will be the end of the mission. So stay tuned for the future missions. Thank you all for watching, and you take care now.